My family forced me to give a kidney to my brother, but they didn't know I was pregnant. I'm Sarah, 32 years old. The last month has been the shittiest of my life. I still don't know what to do. It's that feeling of standing on an edge, and no matter which way you step, a guaranteed cliff awaits. It all started 4 weeks ago when my mom called. It was a Tuesday. I was sitting at my desk working remotely sipping cold coffee. The call was unusual. Not just a "Hi, how are you?" but "Sarah, Matt is bad. Very bad. Come right now." I immediately knew it wasn't a regular cold. My brother, Matt, 35, was always the one the family put on a pedestal. He was the successful businessman, while trying hard to be, constantly getting tangled up in some murky startups. I was always just Sarah, who draws well and lives a quiet life in the suburbs. We were never compared out loud, but that unspoken ranking hung in the air. Matt was the star, I was the satellite, and he always took advantage of it. When I arrived at the hospital, the atmosphere was like a funeral. My father, Robert, was sitting in the corridor, hunched over. My mother, Julia, was pacing back and forth, wringing her hands. I felt like I walked into a movie where everyone speaks in whispers. "Kidneys, Sarah," Mom said when she saw me. Her voice was broken, but her gaze was steely hard. "Failure. He needs a donor. Otherwise." She didn't finish the sentence, but I didn't need her to. Matt had been suffering from this for years, but he'd hidden how critical the situation had become. "He didn't want to worry us," Father explained with clear admiration for his strength of spirit. All I saw in that was his perpetual need to be perfect. Of course, I immediately offered to get tested. How could I not? He's my brother. However complicated our relationship was, we are family. And the whole family looked at me with a hope that was almost physically oppressive. As if I were the last ticket on the lifeboat. Then 3 days ago the result came back. I remember sitting in Dr. Patton's office. He was calm, too calm to be delivering good news. "Sarah, you are a perfect match. A complete match. That doesn't happen very often." His words should have brought relief, but instead a chill ran down my spine. He kept talking about the surgery, the risks, the recovery, but I barely heard him. I was just staring out the window. That evening I met with David, my boyfriend. We've been together for 4 years and lived together. Everything between us was simple, quiet, reliable. I told him about Matt and the match. He immediately became serious. "You're going to do it, right? Save him." He wasn't asking, he was stating. There was no doubt in his eyes. None. No one in my life doubted that I would say yes. The next day, I went to my parents' house to deliver the news. They were waiting for me as if for a verdict. I saw the light ignite in their eyes. Mom hugged me so tight it was hard to breathe. "My girl. You're saving your brother. You are our angel." Father just squeezed my hand and for the first time in years, called me by my name, not Sarah who draws well. "The surgery is scheduled in 2.5 weeks. All pre-op tests need to be done," I said. And so, this morning just 2 hours ago I was at one of those routine tests. The doctor was simply supposed to confirm that I was perfectly healthy. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about being down a kidney in a couple of weeks. This was the price for the title of angel in my family. The doctor stepped away from the machine, his face changed. There was a strange mix of surprise and solemnity in it. He looked at me over his glasses and said, "Congratulations, Sarah. You are pregnant. About 6 weeks along." I felt the ground drop out from under me. Pregnant. My world had just been flipped upside down, and now I had to choose between my brother's life and the life of my unborn child. The doctor's words, "You are pregnant," didn't hit me like a revelation. They hit me like a physical blow to the gut. It wasn't possible. David and I had been careful always. It wasn't the right time, not with Matt's situation, not with the surgery looming, not with everything. But the ultrasound image on the screen was undeniable. A tiny blurry proof of life. 6 weeks. Right before the family crisis exploded. A morbid twist of fate, the universe laughing at my attempts to plan anything. I walked out of the clinic in a daze. My head was ringing, not with joy, but with the deafening sound of an impossible choice. I had a kidney donation scheduled in less than 2 weeks. An operation that was now an immediate threat to this new fragile life inside me. I knew, vaguely, from the brief chat with the doctor, that any major surgery, especially one involving deep anesthesia and a significant recovery period, carried a severe risk of miscarriage in the first trimester. He was clear. You cannot proceed with the surgery without full disclosure of the pregnancy. But how could I disclose it? I drove to David's place first. I didn't want to talk on the phone. I needed to see his face. When I told him, he just stared. His initial reaction wasn't joy, or even fear for the baby. It was worry about the logistics. The surgery, Sarah, he said, rubbing his temples. What about Matt? We already told them you're a match. The date is set. The whole family is counting on you. His focus was entirely on the family pressure, not on the moral bomb that had just dropped on us. It's a baby, David. Our baby. The surgery could kill it. I snapped, my voice trembling. He finally looked at me, really looked, and a flicker of fear crossed his face, quickly replaced by something calculating. Listen, we can't tell them yet. Not the family. Not about the pregnancy. They'll freak out and they'll pressure you to wait, or worse still, go through with it. We need a plan. His suggestion was brutal. We keep it a secret. I tell the surgeon just before the operation that I have a serious, but vaguely described, medical issue that requires a delay of maybe a month, just long enough to see if Matt can find another donor or if we can figure something out. It was a lie built on another lie. But the idea of telling my parents that I was sacrificing their last hope for Matt because of a pregnancy I hadn't even announced yet felt like professional-grade selfishness to them. I spent the next week living two completely separate lives. In the first life, I was the family's savior, the angel Sarah. Mom called me daily, full of unprecedented warmth. She'd bring over my favorite cookies, something she hadn't done since I was a teenager, and talk about how Matt was doing better just knowing the date was set. She even said, "You're making up for all the worry you caused us back in college." A casual gut punch of a reminder that their love was always conditional, always tied to my utility. Matt himself called me, something he rarely did unless he needed a favor or a loan. He sounded weak, but his voice was thick with gratitude. "I owe you everything, sis. Everything." His vulnerability was jarring. It made the guilt heavier. He was genuinely counting on me to live. And I was genuinely contemplating letting him down to save my own kid. In the second life, I was quietly battling morning sickness and trying to process the fact that I was going to be a mother. I had a few small, secretive meetings with an obstetrician, lying about the reason for my frequent checkups, avoiding any mention of the planned kidney removal. I needed to know the actual risk. The news wasn't good. First trimester surgeries significantly increased the risk of spontaneous abortion. The risk wasn't 100%, but it was high enough to be a deal breaker. The stress was turning me into a nervous wreck. I was short with David, who was also increasingly stressed. He kept checking the calendar. 10 days until the pre-op check-in. You need to make a move, Sarah. You need to tell the doctor something plausible. The worst part was the sudden surge of hope I felt for this baby. I had never been actively trying to get pregnant, but now that I knew, I felt fiercely protective. This small, silent existence was mine, and I couldn't sacrifice it for the family's idea of heroism. The final straw this week came during dinner at my parents' house 3 days ago. Mom pulled out an old photo album. It was all Matt. Matt at graduation, Matt winning a soccer trophy, Matt shaking hands with some random investor. She paused on a picture of us as kids. He was always such a light, Sarah. Always a leader. You always just followed, quiet, dependable. This is your chance to really lead, my dear. To be the strong one this time. Her words, meant as praise, solidified my resolve. They didn't see me. They saw a backup resource, a steady, boring pillar that they could lean on when their star started to fall. The family's emotional investment was so high, so completely centered on Matt's survival, that my own life, and now the life of my child, was just a footnote. I knew I couldn't go through with the surgery. The question was, how to break the news without breaking my family's heart, and without revealing the secret that would turn their love into pure, hard resentment. I had 8 days left to find an escape route. The days started to blur into a single agonizing countdown. I had 6 days left until the final pre-op check, the one where I had to either show up for the surgery or invent a catastrophe. The pressure cooker atmosphere at home was suffocating. Every conversation with my parents felt like walking across thin ice. Every question about the surgery date a drill into my secret. David was trying to be supportive, but his support mostly manifested as obsessive planning on how to deceive the medical team and my family. He was frantic, constantly Googling rare, non-fatal infections that could suddenly postpone a surgery. "Look, Sarah," he insisted, pointing at his laptop screen one evening. "We go with Epstein-Barr. You feel fatigue, slight fever, elevated white blood cell count. It'll buy us 3 weeks, maybe a month. Matt is already weak. They'll blame his suppressed immune system for catching something, not the procedure itself." I hated the cold, calculated sound of his voice. I hated that we were crafting a medical alibi, while a tiny human life was forming inside me. "I can't just lie to the surgeon, David. Feels wrong. Feels reckless." "What feels reckless is risking our baby for a kidney that someone else can donate," he shot back, his eyes blazing. He had a point, a hard, undeniable point. This wasn't just about disappointing Mom and Dad. This was about survival. My main conflict was no longer if I should back out, but how to do it without turning the full, crushing weight of my family's resentment onto myself. The tension finally snapped 3 days ago, during a family dinner organized by my parents to celebrate my bravery. The atmosphere was nauseatingly celebratory. Matt was there, looking pale and frail but beaming. He raised a glass of sparkling cider. "To Sarah," he whispered, his voice catching. "My hero. My second chance." My father, Robert, took over, his voice loud and booming. "We always knew Sarah was dependable. She's quiet, but she's rock solid. Some people chase flash. Others are the bedrock. She's the bedrock that keeps this family standing." That word, bedrock, felt like a label slapped on a piece of property. It was the moment I realized they genuinely believed I had no life, no dreams, no agency outside of serving their needs, specifically Matt's needs. Later that evening, after Matt had been helped to bed, the real conflict began. I cautiously tried to float the idea of a delay. "Mom, Dad," I started, carefully choosing my words. "I've been feeling exhausted, more than usual, and I had a bad cold last week. Maybe we should just push the surgery back a week or two, just to be absolutely certain I'm at 100%. We don't want any complications." The reaction was immediate and fierce. My mother, Julia, put down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. Her face hardened, the angelic warmth instantly gone. "Are you serious, Sarah? A cold? You're talking about Matt's life here. The doctors said time is critical. Every day matters." "It's just 2 weeks, Mom." I tried to rationalize. My father leaned forward, his expression severe. "Listen to me, Sarah. Your brother is deteriorating rapidly. The transplant coordinator called yesterday. We secured the operating room, the specialist team. Everything is aligned for next Tuesday. You cannot, under any circumstances, pull back now." His tone wasn't pleading. It was commanding. It was a complete obliteration of my right to feel unwell or even scared. Then my mother dropped the hard line. She didn't raise her voice, which made it 10 times worse. "Don't be selfish, Sarah. We didn't raise you to be selfish. Your brother is suffering. This isn't about your tiredness. This is about stepping up and doing your duty for the one person in this family who truly needs you right now. There are no do-overs here. You have to be strong. You have to go through with this. You simply must." Her words were a direct order, backed by decades of unspoken familial obligation. They had successfully cornered me. They had used love, obligation, and guilt as weapons. The moral stakes had just been publicly raised by my own parents. If I backed out, I was selfish and abandoning my duty. The pre-op check-in was now only 3 days away. I was trapped between my family's survival and the survival of my own child. The pressure was immense. I needed a way out, and the lie David suggested suddenly didn't seem so distasteful. It seemed like the only viable tool I had left. It was Tuesday morning, the day of the final pre-op check-in. The operating room was booked for the following day. There was no more time for debate, no more time to Google fake illnesses, and no more time to process the monumental disaster that was my life. I had to act, or I was going under the knife, potentially sacrificing my 6-week-old pregnancy. I told David to stay home. I needed to do this alone. I drove to the hospital, feeling like a soldier marching to a battle I couldn't win. The plan, the terrible, necessary plan, was simple. I would pull the doctor aside and claim to have a severe, sudden onset of a mystery ailment, something that made anesthesia too risky, and insist on a 2-week delay for more tests. It was a flimsy excuse, but the doctors were cautious. A sudden red flag from the donor might stop the procedure long enough for me to figure out the next step. When I arrived, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. My parents and Matt were already there. Matt looked slightly better, buoyed by the certainty of the upcoming operation. He smiled at me, a genuine weak smile that twisted my insides. "You look a little green, Sarah," Mom observed, immediately honing in on my stress-induced paleness. "Are you feeling okay?" "Just nerves, Mom." "I'll be fine," I lied, forcing a steady voice. They led me to the pre-op staging area. A nurse took my vitals, gave me a small paper bracelet, and began running through the consent forms. I kept rehearsing the lines David had fed me. "Severe fatigue, sudden onset. I think I might have a low-grade infection. I need to speak to the surgeon before I sign anything." Just as the nurse finished, Dr. Patton, the surgeon, walked in. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't making small talk. His face was grim, a stark contrast to the celebratory mood my family was trying to maintain outside. "Sarah, a word," he said, indicating the curtained area. My heart hammered against my ribs. This is it. I have to tell him the lie now. We stepped behind the curtain. I opened my mouth to begin my carefully constructed medical excuse, but he cut me off. "I need to be frank with you. There's been a development," Dr. Patton said, his voice low and serious. "The results from Matt's final tissue crossmatch just came back." I frowned. "What about them? I thought I was a perfect match." "You are genetically, but something has changed very recently. His antibodies are now showing an extremely high level of rejection markers against your tissue. It's called a positive crossmatch. If we proceed with the surgery now, there is a near certainty that his body will reject your kidney within days. We would put both your lives at risk for a futile effort." I felt the air rush out of me. The lie, the elaborate, guilt-ridden lie I was about to tell, was suddenly unnecessary. The universe had delivered its own, devastating postponement. Matt's own body was rejecting my gift. "What does this mean?" I managed to whisper. "It means you are off the surgical table immediately," he stated firmly. "We cannot use you as a donor. We have to cancel the procedure for tomorrow and put Matt back on the National Registry immediately. We'll start aggressive desensitization therapy, but frankly, his odds just dropped significantly." I felt a dizzying mix of relief and crushing dread. Relief because my pregnancy was safe, I didn't have to choose. Dread because Matt's chance at survival had just evaporated, and I was the cause even if it was a biological one. Dr. Patton instructed me to return to the waiting room and be discreet. He would explain the medical details to my family. I walked back out, my head spinning. My family looked at me expectantly. Matt smiled, a hopeful, trusting look. I sat down, trembling. A few minutes later, Dr. Patton joined us. He delivered the news with clinical detachment, focusing on the complex immunology of organ donation. My mother stared at him, then turned her full, furious gaze on me. "You knew," she accused, her voice sharp with betrayal, instantly overriding the doctor's explanation. "You sabotaged this, didn't you? You didn't want to go through with it. You found a way out, didn't you?" The look in her eyes wasn't just disappointment. It was pure hatred. And then the final agonizing turn. Matt, who had been listening silently, spoke up, his voice barely audible but completely sincere. "Mom, stop it. Sarah didn't do anything. It's my body. It's just bad luck. She still offered. She still tried to save me." Matt, the man I was secretly ready to betray, was defending me from the family who had just labeled me a selfish failure. I knew the family storm was just beginning, but a more immediate, more terrifying moral dilemma had just landed in my lap. Now that I was safe, did I have a moral obligation to tell them the real reason I had been so desperate to back out? Or did I protect the secret of my pregnancy and let them believe I was a heartless failure who was simply lucky to be rejected? The clock for Matt was ticking faster than ever. Matt's defense, that simple, honest statement, smashed the tension in the room but replaced it with something far more complex. Shame and profound confusion. My mother recoiled, her furious mask momentarily slipping as Matt's sincerity hit her. My father, Robert, just stood there, looking at the floor, defeated. The rejection markers, the sudden cancellation, it had stripped the oxygen out of their hope. Dr. Patton left us with a sterile promise of new treatment plans, but the damage was done. We left the hospital in silence, a heavy poisoned silence. The surgery was canceled. Matt was going home to wait for another donor, wait for the desensitization therapy to maybe work, wait for the clock to run out. The real reckoning happened that evening at my parents' house. I went back alone, knowing I couldn't hide forever. Mom started slowly, calmly, which was worse than yelling. Why, Sarah? Be honest with me. You were relieved, weren't you? When the doctor told you. You were happy you didn't have to do it. I looked at her. Her eyes were red, exhausted, but still searching for the fault in me, not in the situation. It was the moment of my greatest moral dilemma. Do I finally tell the truth and gain their understanding? Or do I swallow the truth to protect my child's future peace, letting them believe their daughter was lucky to dodge a bullet? I chose the latter. I chose the silence. It was terrifying, Mom, I said, keeping my voice level, steering clear of the pregnancy entirely. I was scared I'd mess it up. I was scared of the recovery. I was scared of being less than 100% for the rest of my life. These were half-truths. Valid fears I had pushed aside until the baby complicated everything. My mother stared at me, then scoffed, a deep wounded sound. You are scared of being less than 100%. Matt is scared of dying. Do you hear the difference? We put you first, Sarah. We told everyone you were doing this incredible, selfless thing. And you were just scared. My father finally spoke, his voice heavy with finality. It doesn't matter now. The opportunity is gone. We appreciate the offer, Sarah. But we need to focus on Matt now. You just go back to your life. That phrase, go back to your life, was the ultimate dismissal. My utility to the family had expired. I was no longer the angel. I was just Sarah, the satellite, quietly dismissed from the main orbit. I drove home and collapsed into David's arms. When I told him the real twist, Matt's body rejected my kidney, he was overwhelmed by relief. It's over, Sarah. We're safe. The baby is safe. You don't have to lie anymore, just don't tell them the other thing either. And for the next 2 weeks, that's what I did. I pulled away. I answered calls minimally. The emotional exhaustion was total. I stopped being the bedrock and became an island. Matt started the new desensitization drugs. His condition was stable but fragile. Then 2 days ago I got a text from Matt. Not a call from Mom, not an order from Dad, but a quiet, direct text from my brother. I went through your things when you were getting tested. I saw the calendar you left open, the one with the OBGYN appointments. I figured it out. You didn't sabotage anything. You were pregnant. You chose your kid. And I get it. My blood ran cold. The secret was out, but only to the one person I was trying to save. I called him immediately, my voice shaking. Matt, why didn't you say anything? Because it's your life, Sarah, he whispered. You don't owe me a kidney. You don't owe Mom and Dad their perfect narrative. When Mom called you selfish, it killed me. You weren't. You were a mother. And you didn't even use the pregnancy as an excuse to get out. You were ready to try and save me despite the risk, until my body fixed the problem for you. Thank you for even trying. He paused, a long rasping silence. Just, don't tell them I know. I don't want to see them turn that resentment onto your baby. They'll ruin it. Go live your quiet life. I'll handle the bedrock. I hung up, staring at the phone. My brother, the golden boy, the perpetual focus of the family's conditional love, had recognized and protected my choice in a way my own mother never could. He understood the moral dilemma better than the people who imposed it. The ending wasn't a perfect resolution. Matt is still sick, waiting for a chance that may never come. My relationship with my parents is fractured, built on a foundation of their belief in my failure to be the hero. But as I look down at my still flat stomach, a fierce, silent realization blooms. I finally have a life that is truly mine, a life I chose to protect, even if the price was my standing in the family. I am not the bedrock anymore. I am the creator. When does saving someone else end, and saving yourself begin? And if the person you saved is your own child, did you ever have a choice at all?